Hey guys, so I'm back with another brand focus video, and the brand for this video is going to be SheaMoisture Cosmetics, which recently launched on Target.com and also in select Target stores. I'm not sure yet if they're going to be available in all Target stores, but for right now they're only in select stores, and I guess it's because of the demographic. After all, SheaMoisture is kind of geared towards women of color, so I guess the Target stores in certain neighborhoods will have it and not so much in others. But I don't know if they intend on selling it in all Target stores, so yeah. So I personally have not seen a SheaMoisture Cosmetics display in any of my local Target stores. I've only been able to order this online, so this video will hopefully help you to see the gamut of products that are available, see swatches, and see products that you might be interested in trying out. But before we jump into the products, I wanted to quickly mention that SheaMoisture is a brand that is dedicated towards natural ingredients, so there are no preservatives and no parabens used in these products. And this brand is also geared towards women of color, so the shades available in the foundations are going to be much deeper, much darker for our rich skin tones, so for tan to deep skin, but there are also some lighter shades available because you know we are the shades of the rainbow when it comes to color. So since these products are marketed and sold at Target online and also in select Target stores, you can expect a price range within the realm of drugstore prices, maybe a few dollars more expensive, but they're definitely nothing close to department store prices. For this range, the price actually goes from $1.99 upwards to $24.99, but the majority of the products within the brand are actually $4.99 up to $15.99 for the face products. Now the overall packaging is very simple, and I actually like the simplicity of the packaging. The boxes that the products actually come in are very similar across the board, and then the actual shade of the product is kind of color coded on the actual box, which I think is a nice touch. So this is a foundation, you'll see the shade there, and then the lip products, again, you'll see the shade on the box. So one interesting thing to mention about the brand is that they have their create your own palette system. So their eyeshadows, their blushes, and some of their face powders actually come in little pans, and then you create your own palette, which they actually sell as well. So this right here is the Create Your Palette magnetic tin, and this is the small version. It's not that small actually. The SheaMoisture logo is printed on it, and it's a reflective metallic chocolate shade, and it's a tin. As you can see, it's aluminum and it's magnetized, so you can go ahead and stick your blush pan or eyeshadow pan right into this palette and it will stick. It also works for other eyeshadow pans as well. And there's nothing else in the tin. This is not a mirror, it's just reflective. You do get 2 magnets included. It's not see-through though, so you will need to know what's in the palette to actually just grab it and go. And that's the only thing that I probably don't like about the palette system, is that it's not see-through and I can't tell what's in here without opening it. There is no divider, so you're not going to get a divider to separate the products. They actually are just going to sit there in the pan, but the magnet is pretty strong. So there are pluses and minuses to this. It depends on how you like your palette. Now this is the larger palette, and I'll show you the size comparison. It's about double the size of the smaller version. And inside, again, you have the magnetized part and then just the reflective part. And in here, I have put my Makeup Geek eyeshadow. So that gives you an example that you can use it for other products as well. And you can see how they would lay out, how many they would fit. It's going to be about 30 of these smaller eyeshadow pans that fit in here. So that gives you a reference for the size. So the small tin palette is $5.99 and the larger palette is $9.99. And if you don't want to go that route and use the palettes for your products, you can actually buy single compacts. These are $1.99 and these are the cheapest products in the line. These are just single use, one pan fits all. This is for the face products, so the face powders fit in here just like that. and then you can carry these along, just single products like that. They snap close, see-through lid, and then the actual compact itself is a matte dark brown shade, which I actually like the color theme of this matte kind of rubberized finish. It's a really solid palette. I actually like the compact a lot, the single compacts a lot. I prefer them over the actual tint. You can also get the smaller compacts for your eyeshadows or for your blush shades, because the blush shades and the eyeshadows are the same size, and you can fit a single blush shade right in there, or a single eyeshadow. And again, these are $1.99, same design, only a smaller compact. Now some of the products actually come in their pre-made compacts. They're not available in the pan size, and these compacts are a little bit different from the single compacts that you can buy, because they have a larger base and they have an opening in the bottom that will carry a face brush or a sponge applicator to use with that product. There's also a mirror there for that one, so I think this is a nice touch. What I don't like is that the actual product itself, that part does not actually fit and clasp close into the compact. You'll see it pops up, so it doesn't fit, but once you close the palette, it actually snaps it in place. But I thought that, because when you're using it, you don't want this to be flopping all around, and that was my only gripe about this packaging. Now let's just take a look at the other packaging. This, for instance, is the lip gloss tube, which is a bamboo style wooden tube with a little see-through rim that you can see the color of the actual product. Again, the logo is printed on the product itself, and then it has a brush tip applicator, which I absolutely despise. This brush tip is ridiculously awful. Then you have the concealer. It's a liquid concealer. Again, it's a brown packaging tube with a see-through slit here that shows the color of the product, and I think that will also give you the level of the product so you can know when you're running out. And this one has a doe foot applicator, which I actually like for this product. I think this one is nicely packaged. Now as far as the foundation and the liquid and cream products, they come in these squeeze tubes, plastic tubes, that I actually think are nice and sleek and sanitary. You pop the top off and you squeeze your product out, and again it has this little see-through window that you can see the shade of the product and where you stand as far as the levels of the product left. You don't have to worry about getting a pump or actually pouring the product out. So now I'm going to go ahead and talk about each product. I'm going to give you my thoughts on them. You're going to see swatches, but I'm actually going to do this a little bit different. You're going to see the product in action, because did my whole makeup with these products, and I wanted to show you that, see the product in action as I talk you through how it feels on my skin and what I think about it. So first up is the face primer, which is a light oil-free and silicone-free formula with no parabens, and it's great for oily, sensitive, and acne-prone skin. It's non-comedogenic and dermatologist tested. So the primer is $15.99 for 1.7 fluid ounces of product, which is actually more than the typical primer, which is only 1 ounce. So this is a nice light primer, and they say to use a pea-sized amount, so that's what I'm going to do, and it comes out like a light white cream. It's actually not a heavy cream, it's more of a lotion type texture, and I really like how it felt on my skin. It felt very lightweight, it wasn't tightening, I didn't feel it on my skin, like it wasn't heavy, I didn't feel it blocking my pores and like some silicone primers can feel. So I think it's a nice primer, it feels good on the skin, and it actually has a scent to it that smells like flower fragrance. So I guess that's the SheaMoisture, the Shea Butter in it. It's an interesting fragrance, but it's very light, so you won't even notice it, and it won't linger on your skin at all. Like, I don't necessarily think everyone needs a primer. I don't think they do the most glorious things in the world, but I do like having a primer as a base to smooth out and even out my skin. So I don't use a primer to extend the wear of my makeup, I do it to give me an even canvas. So I think this one is a good one to try. So now let's just get into the foundations. I picked up the Sheer foundation, which is said to be a lightweight long wear formula that softens the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles while providing medium to full coverage and a naturally dewy finish. No parabens, dermatologist tested, non-comedogenic. So again, these have that tropical flower scent. It's not a floral sweet scent at all. It's more tropical and fresh, and it costs $14.99 each for 1.7 fluid ounces, which is actually more than the normal foundation, which is only 1 ounce. So there are 20 shades of the foundation available, and remember, these are geared towards women of color, so you're going to get more tan tones and deeper rich tones than lighter shades. So you're not going to see ivory, but you'll definitely see honey tones and mahogany and chestnut shades. Now, as I said before, picking your shade will be a little bit tricky if you can't see these in store, because you have to go by the little color tiles on the website. I just eyeballed it and went by the name and picked a color that I thought would match, and I picked another color just in case so I can mix them together. So the shade I got was Yasuni Honey, and I also picked up the shade Chincoteague Chestnut. The names are so screwy. I don't know how to pronounce them. I don't know what they're based on, but I can't pronounce half of these names. But these are the 2 shades I picked. Again, I just eyeballed it. And these are actually some of the lighter shades, which is interesting because the chestnut shade is a little bit dark. But mixing these 2 together, I can get a great color for my skin. I'm going to apply this, and as you can see, it's a very sheer coverage. I don't think this is medium to full coverage as they say on the packaging. I think it's a sheer to maybe medium buildable coverage, but you're definitely not going to get full coverage out of this. It gives me a nice even canvas, but it still shows skin through, and I think that it's more in line with what the name is, sheer foundation, versus what they're saying, full coverage. It gives a seriously dewy finish as well. That is true. It's dewy as hell. That may not be the best for oily skin. I personally did not like that dewy finish on my skin, but I did like how it feels. I like that it's smooth, it's hydrating, it feels very light on my skin. It gives me this nice finish without being tightening. I don't feel it melting in the sun. It actually gives a nice skin-like finish. I do have to powder this down, so if you're oily, I don't necessarily think this is for you, but if you have dry skin, I think this would be a great foundation, and if you don't want full coverage. So if you just like a nice lightweight foundation, I think this is a great one for you. They're nice, they're not my go-to. Now next up is a product that I didn't actually demo, but this one is the CC cream, and I got the shade medium. As you can see on my skin, it's a nice shade. It blends into my skin nicely. And the CC cream costs $15.99. It's $1 more expensive than the foundation, and again, it has the 1.7 fluid ounces, which is more than the typical size, which is just 1 ounce. So the CC cream gave me a similar coverage and effect as the Sheer foundation, which I thought was a little interesting. The foundation itself gives a little bit more coverage, but I think the CC cream can give you enough coverage if you don't want that caked on, you know, mess of foundation on your skin, or if you have pretty great skin and you just want nice even coverage. And it's going to give you that natural dewy finish, like I said. So if you're oily, you have to commit to powdering. If you are dry, this would be a great product for you. I also think this is great for teenage skin and those with younger skin because it's just a lightweight coverage. Now for the concealer. So the concealer is $15.99 and you get 0.263 ounces in this, and I think that is pretty low for a concealer. As you can see, it's a very small tube, so I think this is a little bit on the low side. I'm surprised by that since it is one of the higher priced products, but who am I? There are 4 shades available in this, and I got the shade Havasu Hazel. Like I said, the names are a little bit intense, so yeah. This shade is actually more of a highlight shade for me. It's definitely not a concealer, but I'm gonna apply it anyway so you can see what the coverage is like. I really like the texture of it. It's lightweight. It's not heavy or creamy. It's actually more of a liquidy feel, and it absorbs quickly into the skin and sets down to like a powdery finish. So I like this. I don't know if a drier skin might like this, but for my skin, I think this is great. And I'm actually going to pick up a couple more of the shades because I think this works great as a highlighter. It actually blends in so nicely into the skin that I definitely recommend this one. But I think for the price and the size, I'm a little bit skeptical. It's a little sketch, but it's actually a great product, and this is one of those that I think is one of the winners in the line. So definitely check this out. It's great. It gives a nice coverage. It's very pigmented. It's not going to give you a thick full coverage though, so if you're going for that blocked out cake face look, you're not going to get it from this, but it's going to cover your dark circles. It covered my dark circles, and it will cover areas on your skin. There are only 4 shades, like I said, that are available, so it's going to be tricky picking out a shade that's going to match your complexion to hide like blemishes and stuff, but for highlighting purposes I think this is great. I also ended up picking up the shade Snowdonia Fawn, which is this really pale ivory shade. It has somewhat of a peachy undertone, so that's going to be far too light for me, but it might work great as an under eye highlight, or it may work on those with lighter skin tone. This shade is the Havasu Hazel, which is that creamy yellow undertone concealer, which works great as a highlight for my skin tone, and I think if you're a little bit darker my complexion, that will work great as well. And then the last shade I have here is the Tropea Almond, which is a darker creamy yellowy orangey shade concealer. It actually works well on my skin. It blends in, but I would suggest if you're a little bit darker than me, that will work great as a concealer for you, or even as a highlight shade if you're really dark. So now let's just jump into the eyeshadow, since I'm just gonna do my eyeshadow look. And I put all my eyeshadows, I got all of them because there are only 10 shades available, so I got all of them, and they're all here in my little tin. And again, these are $4.99 and they're 0.1 ounce, which are larger than the typical eyeshadow pans, which are 0.5 ounce, so you're getting double sized eyeshadows for $4.99. Just for reference, I'm gonna apply all these eyeshadows over an eyeshadow primer. That's what I would typically do for any eyeshadow, so I'm gonna be fair and do that here, but I think the pigmentation is still pretty decent without a primer. So the first shade up that I'm using on my inner tear duct is the shade Casandra, and this is a nice peachy golden shade. I absolutely love this color. It's reminiscent of MAC's Expensive Pink, but much more golden. It has more of that golden duotone. It's a great highlight shade for your inner tear duct, and you can also use this on your face because of that beautiful sheen that it has. It's really creamy and blendable, and it's actually nicely pigmented for the shade that it is. It's a lighter color, but it has great pigmentation. The next shade up that I'm applying on the middle of my lid is Deysi, which is this gorgeous aquamarine kind of teal blue shade. It's a great mermaid shade. It's the shimmery shade. It's absolutely gorgeous. Great pigmentation, very smooth, very blendable, but you have to be careful because as you blend this, the color does kind of fade a bit, so you have to pack on the color if you want full color payoff, but it does apply nicely to the skin. The next shade is Taylor, which is a dark blue shade. It's more of a satin finish. It's not truly matte, and it's not a high shimmer shade, but this is one of the disappointments. I love the color. This was one of the ones that I was most excited about. I love the color, but the payoff is very poor. It's sheer. It takes a lot to pack on the color. I actually have to dig it out of the pan to get this color payoff. So even though it's a beautiful shade, it's too difficult to work with. That's one I wouldn't recommend. Next up is the shade Noemi, which I thought I was going to have trouble with because it's also a matte shade like Taylor, but this one is different. It has great pigmentation, great color payoff. It's highly blendable. It applies great to the skin. It can feel a little chalky when you swatch it with your finger, but on your skin it actually is smooth and very blendable. This is Cecilia, which is a nice cream toned ivory shade. It's not a light ivory, it's a more creamy beige shade. I absolutely love this shade. Again, I thought this was going to be an issue because it's matte, but it's so creamy and buttery, it's ridiculous. I don't know what went wrong with Taylor, but this is an awesome shade. It makes a great highlight color for tan skin because it is not white, but it's more of a creamy beige. Next up is the shade Elsa, which is a light seafoam green shade, which I thought, wait a minute, Elsa shouldn't that be blue? But regardless, this is a great color. It's nice and smooth and shimmery, and it applies beautifully to the skin. This is richly pigmented, and there's a slight golden shift to it. Next up we have this dark forest green shade. It's called Alejandra, and it's such a rich, complicated shade. It isn't really green, it's not black, it's not silver. It has that green, that forest green shift to it. It's gorgeous. It's more of a satin finish. It's not a true shimmer or a matte. This will make a fantastic smoky eye. I think this has great color payoff and pigmentation. This shade is Carly, which is a shimmery silver shade with a slight purple lavender shift to it. Oh my god, this is so buttery, so soft, so creamy. I love this shade. This is not one I applied, but this is a beautiful one and I definitely recommend it. Next up we have the shade Montana, which is a chunky kind of champagne shade, which I didn't like how chunky it feels on the skin. It's a little bit gritty. It has a lot of fallout because of that texture. So this is not one that I truly recommend, even though it's such a gorgeous shade. If you're gonna get this shade, intend on using it wet, because that's what you're going to need to do to make sure that it adheres to the skin. Or you can use a very sticky primer, but this one is going to give you fallout and give you a little bit of trouble to work with. Then last up we have the shade Claudia, which is a rich dark matte brown shade, which is going to be a staple in anyone's collection. It's nicely pigmented. You can use this for eyebrows, for liners, for a smoky look. I think this is a gorgeous shade. So overall I think the eyeshadows are nice. They're nicely pigmented. They blend really well. They're creamy and they're really a pleasure to work with, except for the shade Taylor and that shimmery champagne shade, which is Montana. Those two shades are not ones that I would recommend at all, but I think the other shades are absolutely gorgeous and you should definitely try those out. So now let's move on to the powder products for my face. I'm actually going to set my highlight with one of the pressed powders. So they have wet dry powders, which are more meant for foundation, and then they have pressed powders, which are meant for finishing powders or setting powders, I would assume, just by how they have them. The pressed powders come in palettes like pans like this, so you need to put them in a palette or in one of the empty compacts. And the pressed powders are $14.99 for the inserts, and they contain 0.31 ounces of product, which is a little bit less than a typical powder, but still it's a lot of powder that you won't necessarily go through a whole pan. And the first shade I'm going to use is the Yala golden shade, which actually works out really well as a highlight shade for my complexion. So I really truly recommend this shade if you're my complexion or a little bit darker. It's a nice golden shade, rich yellow undertones but not orange, so it works great as a highlight. And it's not a truly fully matte dry powder. It's really creamy and it gives this nice natural matte finish. So it's not a dry matte, it's more of a creamy matte finish, and I absolutely love this powder. Again, I just chose my colors based on the color tiles on the website. I didn't know what else to do. And then to set my foundation all over, I'm going to use a Tasman Tawny shade, which is actually a great shade as well. It really matches my skin and really blends everything together nicely. I also have the Malindi Sable shade in the pressed powder pan. I'm going to use this in my forehead area to give me a tan, and this is a great powder. Again, I love the finish, I love how creamy it is, so I definitely recommend these powders. Now I'm going to mix and match the powders because I am going to apply a contour to my face, and for this I'm going to use the wet and dry powder, which is different from the pressed powder. These actually come in their own compact, and this is the shade Malindi Sable. It's a dark shade. Again, you're gonna find these dark shades in this powder. This one I applied as a contour to my cheeks, and I like the texture of this one, and it is as creamy as the other powder, which I don't understand the difference. But this one had, well, no, I think I know the difference. This one has a little bit more of a satiny finish to it, so it's not as matte as the pressed powder. This you can use wet or dry, so you can use it for foundation, so you can wet it, use it as foundation. This has a little bit more coverage than the regular pressed powder. These are $14.99 for 0.32 ounces, so it has a little bit more product than the regular pressed powders. So this is the Yala golden shade, which as you see has a nice strong yellow undertone. Really love this shade. This is the Tasman Tawny, which is actually close to my skin tone, so that's a nice setting powder for me. This is the Malindi Sable in the pressed powder form, and then this is it in the wet dry powder. Now the liquid eyeliner comes in the same bamboo tube as the lip glosses, and it has a small brush tip applicator, so it's not a felt tip, it's an actual brush tip. And this is the black shade. They have another dark shade too. There are 2 shades available, and this is $8.99 for 0.19 ounces of product. So you don't get that much product, and it's not that cheap either. It's more on the higher side of the price range. This I absolutely hate. Do not get this. I do not recommend this. This is a horrible product. It is very wet, very liquidy. It stays wet. You apply this and it's gonna stay wet on your eyelids. So if you blink and you have like a hooded eye, it's gonna transfer up to your lid area, and it doesn't dry down. It doesn't dry down at all. It stays wet and it just looks odd. The coverage is patchy when it dries down. Some is wet, some part of it's wet, some is dry. It's just awful, and it's so runny and liquidy that as I'm applying it, a little bit got in my eye and I almost died. It burns so much. Don't get this. Do not get this at all. I absolutely do not recommend this. Now there are 2 mascaras available. One is a lengthening mascara and one is a volumizing mascara. I don't need too much length, so I got the volumizing formula, and this is $8.99 for 0.14 ounces of product. Again, do not get this one. Do not get the mascara. It's awful. It is wet and it stays wet, and then because it is wet and doesn't dry, it actually makes your lashes stick together because it is so wet and clammy and crazy. It is disgusting. It's just awful. It's awful. I wanted to cry when I put this on. I was like, oh my god, what is life? I actually had to put on a different mascara and add lashes to compensate for this mascara. This was just awful. I do not recommend this. Do not get this at all. Do not get the mascara and do not get the eyeliner. Now for the blushes. The blushes are $5.99 for 0.1 ounce of product, and these are the same size as the eyeshadows. So it's a smaller than typical blush size, but it's still a decent size for blush. Like, how much blush are you going to use? But keep in mind that they are the size of the eyeshadows. They're not a typical large blush, so you're not getting too much product, but they're only $5.99, so what's your complaint? There are 5 shades to choose from. They're mainly berry tones and very natural tones. The shade that I'm using on my cheeks is Varkala Spice, which I absolutely love. It's this interesting, spicy, it's actually a cinnamon looking shade. It's a reddened copper tone with a golden sheen to it, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. The blushes are actually really smooth and blend really nicely onto the skin. They have nice pigmentation without being overwhelming, so you won't like put too much on and be like, oh my god, because they blend out really nice and they look glorious on the skin. I think these blushes are a standout in the lineup, and I think they're actually absolutely worth it. This shade is Varkala Spice, as I mentioned. It's just this cinnamony, gloriously beautiful shade. Next up we have Altia Sand, which is more of a mauvey berry tone. It's beautiful. It's more matte in finish, but it's more of, I wouldn't say it's a flat matte, it's more of a natural matte finish. Also very pigmented and beautiful. This shade is Konya Plum, which is a more purpley berry shade, and it's a little bit lighter than the Altia Sand shade. Then we have Annecy Maroon, which is this berry shade with a golden sheen to it. This one is particularly gorgeous. It has that sheen to it, so it's really nice compared to the 2 matte shades. Then last up we have Casablanca Copper, which is a deep brown shade, which would be more of a contour for me. It's matte in finish, so it would work as a nice contour shade, and it would work great as a natural tan shade for darker skin. So that one's one to check out if you're interested in a neutral brown tan blush. Now we're moving on to the illuminating powders, or the highlight powders in this lineup, and they are called the illuminating powder, and they're $11.99 for 0.34 ounces of product. So you're getting the typical blush size for the cost, and these have 6 shades available. And it's very tricky to pick them out because the shades that I got do not look anything like what they look like in the pan. But right off the bat, I love these products. These are absolutely glorious. I think these are one of those things that you must get in this lineup. So I picked up 3 of the shades, and the one that I'm going to apply is the Vanuatu Nude. And it's this shimmery champagne shade. The shimmer, what I love about these products is that the shimmer is very light. It's not apparent, it's not glitter, it's not this chunky sparkly effect on your skin. It's really a finely milled shimmer. It's almost like, is it really shimmer or is it just a glow? It gives this beautiful kiss of sheen on your skin. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's really natural on darker skin and oily skin, especially because I can speak for oily skin girls. When you add shimmer and shine to your face, it can overwhelm you and look like you're frying chicken on your face because of the shimmer effect. These powders are so subtle and so light. I think these are what I need my highlights to be. Like, I would never imagine that I would find my holy grail highlight product in the drugstore, but this is where it's at. The shade here is the Vanuatu Nude, which I am butchering, but it's the shimmery champagne. It has a slight pink sheen to it. Oh my goodness, but you see that sheen is, this is a heavy swatch. You're gonna blend that out and it's gonna look like this nice sheen on your skin. As you can see when I blend it out, it just is so beautiful. And then the middle shade is the Tortola Tan, which is so pretty. Sorry, I'm not flipping you off, but it's such a nice shimmery golden sheen. It's so beautiful. I think these are such great colors. And then the darker shade is the Cinnamon Ceylon, which is so pretty. This is more of a coppery shade. It's the darker shade that would work great on darker skin, but it also works on my tan skin as well. But it would look so glorious on darker skin. So these highlight shades I think are must-haves. They also come in their own compact, and they have that little brush underneath that you can use to apply it. The foundations come with the little sponge, and the highlight powders come with the little brush, which is actually a nice brush. It's actually pretty soft and it's actually very usable. So it's not a bad investment at all. I think that interesting that the brush is actually a very usable and very nice brush. And then last up in the lineup are the lip products, and these are the lip glosses. These are $9.99 for 0.23 ounces of product, which is around the typical size of a lip gloss. These I could take or leave. That's how I really feel about them. I like them, but they are not that outstanding to me. And the colors are interesting. I like the tubes. I like the colors. I think they're interesting. They're just not the greatest products out there. The brush applicator is ridiculously awful. Like, the brush is terrible. If you like glosses, and these are not sticky glosses, they're actually very comfortable to wear. They feel nice and moisturizing on the lips. They are gonna wear like a typical lip gloss. A couple of hours you'll get nice wear out of them, and they're actually not uncomfortable to wear. So the colors are nice, but I don't think they're blow away products. They're not like amazing. The one that I'm wearing on my lips is Caroline, which is this nude shade. It's a nice creamy nude color. And then the orangey coral shade here is Leah. Nice bright shade for spring. It's actually very pretty. And then the recommend, if you do get any of these glosses, is the Jenny shade, which is this nice purpley pink fuchsia shade. It's really gorgeous, and it has like a nice sheen to it. Now overall, I think this lineup, this brand is a great addition to our drugstore kind of lower, cheaper priced cosmetics, because we do need some competition on the market for that. And they're also geared towards women of color or more tan skin, so that's absolutely great, because we need more representation on the market, because higher end brands are not catching up with providing products for darker skin. And you know what, if a cheaper brand, a natural product ingredient brand wants to come on and take that on, then I absolutely support it. And I think this brand deserves the support. You can find it again Target.com or in select Target stores. And my recommendations from this line, first and foremost, which I think are must-haves, are the illuminating powders, because I think those highlight powders are so divine. Also, I think they're pressed powders versus the wet dry powders. I think the pressed powders are great. They're gonna make great contour shades, setting powders, and highlight shades. Definitely do not get the mascara or the liquid eyeliner. Those are awful. They're just terrible. The eyeshadows are also very nice. I'm very happy with how they apply, how they blend, how they build color-wise. The Taylor shade and the Montana shade are the ones that I wouldn't recommend, but all the other shades are absolutely beautiful to work with, and they're $4.99. How can you beat that? I think these are great. The blushes as well are $5.99 each, and I think they do a great color range for deeper skin. So if you were looking for more berry tone shades, these are definite ones to check out. The concealers too, I think, are great products. So that's what I think about this brand. Hopefully this video was helpful to you guys. I know it's a long video because it's all encompassing and I put everything in this video, and I hope you like the format. And if you have any more suggestions, requests, then definitely leave them below, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!